with instruments that we can push, whether it's pumps or flights, or that we can just kind of monitor. This plant is monitored every day of the year from 6 a.m. to 4 p.m. And then at 4 p.m., 2500, which is the console area that has about 20 screens, at Columbia will watch this, and then one of the operators will be on standby from 4 p.m. until 6 a.m. the next morning. So if something happens at 5 p.m., they will call us, hey Ryan, there's an issue, an alarm that came in, do you want to come deal with it? And then we can get on our laptop and decide if it's something that we need to come in for or whatever, and that's how it gets taken care of. So this place is not manned, like I said, from 4 p.m. till 6 a.m., but it is, somebody will be here on Christmas, somebody will be here every single day doing certain lab samples to check the health of the plant per se. This is kind of a overview of the plant. We're in this building right here. This is kind of the property line that, as you can see, this is the Foothills Park where you guys park, I think, up there. So it kind of goes all the way and wraps around. There's our pipes that are coming in from the Lake Oswego side, and there's the Portland side going that way. This is where the new plant is going to be built, right here. And then this is, I think, it's 12 acres, 11 to 13, I can't remember what it is, that our plan is right now. This is our headworks area where everything comes in, and then it kind of goes this route, and then it actually goes out this way, and we're going to walk all that way. But just to kind of show you, it's kind of a different design, how it kind of does like a circle and then kind of goes out. And then this is the outfall right here.
So wastewater treatment is broken into a couple different process areas, and this was, like Ryan was saying, this is the first, when it was built back in 65, this is what it looked like originally. And so we have a lot of the main plant is still operating, but like your car, if you had a car from the 60s, you probably had to do some work on it since then. And so the plant has been expanded as population grows and things you have to expand. So we've added a lot of things. So this was dead center in the property, and so now you have to add around it. And so like Ryan was saying, you have to kind of get flows to move from the beginning, but now you added a process up here on the hill, and so you got to pump it up the hill, and we'll see that as you go through the plant. And then you've got to reuse some of the old processes, and so you got to get this flow back down the hill. And so you'll see that as we kind of loop through the plant. There's some older processes, but basically the point of wastewater treatment is to use gravity as much as we can to separate liquids and solids. And so we're taking the sewage in, and initially we're just going to separate liquids and solids out with gravity, and then we'll try to use pumps and chemicals and equipment to further separate liquids and solids. And that's basically the idea of wastewater treatment, is just remove solid waste and separate that water out that's clean and usable, that we discharge into the river that can be used again in the water table.
Yeah, and as he said, so the only spot, and we'll show you that gravity's not our side, is this PET building where everything comes in gravity. It goes into here, it has to pump up in elevation, and then the rest of it's gravity the rest of the way out to the river when it goes out to this outfall that's right out here in the river. Columbia is actually the same way, except they have the headworks, which is the front of the plant where they have to pump up to the plenum, and then the rest of theirs is basically gravity for a 2-mile length before it goes out to the Columbia River pipes. So this is a little bit kind of the same, but gravity is on our side for the most part, except for one spot on both plants. Does anybody have any questions about any of this?
A question. Besides output, is there anything, does the plant benefit from the power of the river at all? Or is it just gravity works here?
Just gravity.
Okay.
Yeah.
On the screens, what is red mean and what is green mean?
What do you think red means?
Generally it means not good, but no one looks alarmed.
True.
So,
Yeah, so the wastewater is backwards than what you would think.
okay.
Red is running. We picture it as blood in your veins. It's alive. Red is alive and running, and green is off.
Okay.
Blue is the one you'd want to fear. Blue's bad. Blue's bad. Blue's alarmed. So you see blue flashing, it means it's a failure or alarm of some kind.
And if you have red-green color blindness, you're in trouble.
That's a good point.
I do fail red-green color blindness tests, and these are red enough and green enough that
Really?
that it's distinguishable. But it's also paper industry, so it's not just it's not uncommon in an industrial facility. Is red is running.
But that is a good question, because that's, was very weird for me when I started.
Yeah.
Is that things are running that's red, but everything that you see, that is running is indeed red, and then the green is, either in kind of like a standby mode or available as needed.
Oh, I see.
So we're still kind of in it's gonna sound weird, but we're still in kind of a summer mode right now. As in, we're not a combined out here. I don't know if people know that or not. We're not a combined sewer like Columbia is, where they get all the storm drain rain, that hits the streets and this and that. They see a lot more quicker flow than we do. It's gonna take us a little bit, of rain, like we'd have to have days and days of this for rain for us to start getting up and flow. We are a little higher right now, which means it's seeping through some of the pipes because we get some I&I, and this and that, but we don't get as much as like they do. So we're still only half capacity, I would say, of the plant right now, which means we're able to get everything full treatment, compared to if we were full, and then sometimes you don't get the complete treatment that you want because you don't want solids blowing out of the plant without full treatment.
Here, non-technical question, I&I stands for what?
Infiltration and inflow.
Yeah, okay. I didn't want
So
to.
basically, when you have pipes underground or a collection system of some kind, there's two ways that water can get in. One is inflow, where you are putting it into, so you can lift a maintenance hole cover off and let water go in from your downspout or whatever. You're releasing water into that purposefully. Or infiltration is when you have pipes that are cracked or leaky and water is seeping in.
Which happens almost
Unintentionally.
everywhere. Like any older pipes is gonna have that. The ground is like here is like a sponge basically, and we won't. If you see a humongous downpour, you won't even see anything because all it's gonna do is just soak that up, and as soon as it dries up, you won't see that extra rain into these pipes, and we won't even see an extra flow at all. We just won't see it. At Columbia, you will, because it'll hit the storm drains. It'll go in. It'll be all that extra flow. Anything that hit the earth essentially would be possibly gonna have to get full treatment. So in a way, that's good because a lot of the storm drains then that they have will just go out of the creeks and rivers or lakes or whatever it is. This will actually, at Columbia, it would all have to get treated as if it was, bad water.
So what would bring it up to like everything being running? and
So is-
red? Like you said, this is summer, but then you're
Yep.
mostly, but you're not treating the, just the stormwater, thank you. I was like,
So for us, it would have to be, so right now, that's actually a good question. I should actually bring this up because I didn't say this, I don't know if you can see this, but 4 MGDs coming from the Lake Oswego side. I'll show you guys the pipes outside. But there's 4 MGDs coming from the Lake Oswego side, and then 1.6 MGD is coming from the Portland side. So right now, we're only at 5.6 MGD. That's a little higher than normal than we are. I think on a normal day, we're about 4 MGD would be realistic. Huh? What's MGD? Million gallons per day. That's how much we're treating. Sorry. And then, but what we do is we split that cost right now with Lake Oswego for about a 60 to 65% is what Lake Oswego would pay, and then we pay 30 to 35% or 40%, whatever the numbers. It's all built on flow. So that goes on projects and that goes on flow, and basically they just, if I'm wrong, you guys know this better than me, but they just basically write us a check saying, hey, this is what we paid. So, but to answer your question is, when this flow comes up and we just keep getting this flow, and then we start to, what we'll do is we'll watch certain areas in our plant that if our solids are starting to go over the edge because they didn't have enough settability time, then what we'll do is we'll put on other tanks per se, and that will give that more detention time to stay and get good treatment. But as we get rain and it keeps happening, like, in the next couple of weeks, we just might get weeks and weeks of rain, and we won't have time for that, so we'll just have to put more tanks online.
So I'm really glad you brought up the flow differential between the two cities, because as Ryan said, that is a key component to the financial of Tryon Creek. And in the past, we had a 50-50 split, and it wasn't really based on flow. We just presumed we measured flow at 50-50 at some point in the past and locked that in as our cost share. And as things have changed over the decades, that needs to be rebalanced. And so this new IGA will rebalance that, and it's approximately, I think we're envisioning a 70-30 split in the IGA, and that's what's making this financially viable for Portland to go down this path, is not only the cost of building new rather than upgrading old, has a cost benefit, but also rebalancing the flow in a formal agreement between the two cities is leading to a financial benefit to us. It's going to save, I think at this point, somewhere in the neighborhood of $60 million. Should we, if we were to continue to own and operate this plant. So that's our point of reference. If we continue to own and operate Tryon Creek and make investments in this plant, we have an estimate of what those costs would be. The alternative of having Lake Oswego build out and operate this plant is going to save the city of Portland significantly.
Remind us why it's fixed and not just based on actuals?
So that's a great question. I don't have the answer to that, but we're remedying it now. So we are looking at actuals to reset the IGA, and the IGA, the intergovernmental agreement, is going to have, I think, some language for us to reconcile this over time.
Okay.
So even as it's currently rebalanced at 70-30, conceivably that could change in the future, and there's mechanisms in the IGA for us to revisit that over time.
Yeah, the existing IGA was established in 1984, or I guess negotiated in 83, adopted in 84. It was to replace a previous IGA that was very unfavorable to Portland and took many, many years to negotiate. So I think it was quite contentious. And at the time that agreement was set, the flow was essentially 50-50 between the cities. And so that was the basis. There's a little bit of speculation in there, but that's kind of the background of it.
But now we have the data.
But now we've got a screen that shows it.
Yeah, these screens, when I think it was before I started here, there was actually these, what were they, like the seismograph, like the circle graph, you remember those?
Yeah, it was like this
This
behind
whole
us
wall.
there.
I think we still have them somewhere. I don't know where they're at, but it was so weird how they literally had like the needles that were how we would measure everything, and this was all here. That's what this lip is, and it's all way different.
Yeah, so this was mission control behind you there.
Yeah.
It's like a NASA panel.
Yeah, no, it looks crazy. Like, yeah, no, there's been a lot of updates, and things are all on here now, which is good. And we do all our reporting and everything on here, and then we have backups onto hard copies and regular. But yeah. Does anybody have any more questions about any of this stuff, or any questions about this build? We can go in the lab and look if we want.
That's a good question. So is there a point where there's so much water flow that, well, it sounds like there's a point where there's so much water flow potentially where the water can't be 100% treated, and is that just it is what it is? And
no, so it's funny, we were actually, Jim and I and Kyle and I were just talking about that. We've only had to use, it's called a select treat. The bad word for it is bypass. And what we do is we basically would have to, if our aeration basins, and we only do this if everything is completely full, is the way that we would do it. Is if, like right now, this is actually exactly how you're gonna see it. This tank is actually empty right now, this tank is empty, these are empty, and these two big primaries are empty right now, and these three small are full right now. So for us to bypass, and what that means is we would be bypassing the secondary treatment, which is the biological treatment side, which is our aeration basins and our secondary treatment. What we would be doing is now the flow would be coming from here, and it goes, there's a gate right here that now has, it's called select treat, as in another hypo pump that pumps from down below, pumps into here, and it then ends up mixing right here at this, the diversion little structure before it goes to the contact chambers now. So it still gets the primary treatment, and then it just comes to right here, and it still gets hypo treatment, and then contact, and then out.
okay.
So it still does get treated, it just doesn't get all the complete treatment. And we never try to do that. I think we have had to do that 2 times in the last 3 years. And that's just, on crazy storms. We do a really good, I don't like to pat ourselves on the back, but we do a really good job on it.
You should. If you don't, I will.
Personally, I think that we do a really outstanding job out here on making sure, because it's almost like an art, you have to be a little strategic on how you deal with certain storms and everything. And so what we do is we'll try to make every little ounce of water count so we don't have to bypass. And that's, like I said, that's a bad word in wastewater, but we don't want to do that. So as much as we don't have to, we try to store as much as we can. We pre-plan and we figure out, and as soon as one rainstorm comes in, then we drain those tanks again to get ready for the next one, so we don't have to do that. Because we want all the water treated before it goes out to this Willamette River, because I don't live that far from here.
And Ryan, I would add to that, the combined effluent still meets the permanent effluent
Yep.
limits.
Yep.
And it's been disinfected.
And it mixes with the same effluent that came from the secondary treatment. And, you know, I'll be honest, like, I think it was 6 years ago, 5, 6 years ago, we used to fail, and I wouldn't say fail E. coli because you just fail the first sample and then you can retest. We haven't failed an E. coli sample in 5, 6 years. So we failed the first sample, but then you retest to see if you actually failed, and we haven't done that at all. Because we put a new hypo project in 3 years ago, and we haven't had that one issue since then. So even when we did have those bypasses, you know, it still hasn't been an issue.
One anecdote about a storm that went up to like 39 million gallons
Yeah.
a day. We can get about 19 to 20 million gallons a day through the secondary treatment. And the plant staff was like that circus act where they're spinning plates. And they were able to shunt and store flow for a storm that was, I think, up to 37 without having to actually operate the bypass gate.
Yep.
Or the select treat gate.
Yeah.
They do an amazing job of managing flow and utilizing all the storage.
Yeah, I always refer to like some of the operations personally as I refer to them as kind of firefighters in a weird way, because sometimes you're kind of just monitoring, you're waiting for things to happen, and then when a fire happens, you go deal with it. Like that's kind of like when storms like this happen and things like that happen, that's when you really got to go out and it's all hands on deck to try to figure out the best way to treat the water. You know, otherwise you're kind of doing PMs and just random things to make sure and be ready for these type of things. So, yeah. Anybody else have anything for in here? If not, we'll go in the lab.
I might be stating the obvious. PM is preventative maintenance.
Oh, sorry.
Okay. Yeah.
Thank you for that.
I need to fill out these acronyms.
From the biological treatment process in that in there, and so any methane we can capture, we use, and at this plant we use in boilers to generate heat. So it's basically heating itself back up or creating hot water. And then anything we can't use, we'll just burn off that gas. In Colombia, they've got more resources to use the gas, so they can put it in the generators and create electricity. All kinds of uses.
At Columbia, they have a lot more digesters. Those are our 2 digesters that we passed. So, and those are more or less just holding tanks, because we use these 3 tankers. These each hold about 6,000 gallons. We use these for digester loads, and then also thickened waste activated sludge loads, which is how we get rid of our solids out of the plant. So we have a truck driver that starts at about 2 o'clock in the morning, and he works till, his regular shift is Monday through Friday, 2 a.m. till 10:30. Just because of traffic, it's not as bad. Otherwise, traffic would be crazy if you work certain hours. So he drives these constantly, and he also drives our rags, which is all our rags that come right off the bar screens, and then our grit truck. And he's constantly driving those items to Columbia, as we have nowhere to store those. So we can just decide how we want to fill these depending on what the need of the plant is. So I just wanted to kind of stop here now and bring these up, because we just got out of the trailer back. This is our millwright shop that's right over here. Now we have 2 millwrights out here. We did have one for a while, but kind of these are hypo tanks up here, which if you see in the pavement right here, this is actually where our hypo pumps pump up to the top of the plant now. It's a little bit different than the way it used to be done. So walk up. Yes. Headwork to kind of show everybody what's going on. Yeah.
And do they have like a, I didn't realize.
So this is the Lake Oswego side. On this side, where I always remember it, Lake Oswego's over this way more, and this is the Portland side. Maybe the gold and silver will be coming in on this side. These are new bar screens we just got put in last summer, which is nice.
Well, rehab old ones.
Yeah.
New to you?
Well, they got a complete rebuild. We've got to keep operating until our new facility is up.
Yeah.
Yes.
Lift the waste off there, depending on the differential level, and then they hit on this conveyor belt and they go into this truck. Like I said, about once a week, this truck will then get filled up, and then we take this to Columbia to dump, and then they get rid of it to land waste. These are also pH meters that are right here on the side that are reading the pH of each side. This is essentially combined. Up there is where we measured, back where those samplers were. You measure the flow, but these are the pH meters on both sides that we can read these. All these type of things read on our the screens that you guys are seeing in the building, so we can monitor these things all the time. Tries to remove all the inorganics type stuff that's just gets wasted, and then we have another spot over there. See that truck over there underneath? So these are primary clarifiers. This is our two big primary clarifiers. This is 5 and this is 4, and then there's 1, 2, 3. In the middle you're going to see, and I'll show you guys that in a second, but that is actually where the flow goes right out to the river in between all these primaries, which is kind of weird, but it's just the way that the plant is constructed now. What's that? Oh yeah, we have baby ducks that are in there constantly, like trying to save them all there. We have boards in there and tries to keep them out of there, but the purpose of these primary clarifiers is when this the influent flow comes into here is to get rid of the solid waste on the bottom. These flights will be moving as the flight is super slow to sit there and remove the solid waste. The heavy stuff goes to the bottom, and then it comes up to a top area, which I'll show in a little bit. And then the top area goes into these scum troughs. See that discolored area over in those primary clarifiers over there? There's like a little scum layer that every couple days we put that scum into a trough, and then that stuff will get pumped up by like a contractor that takes it out of there. So it's to remove as much solids as we can, BOD, TSS as we can with these primary clarifiers. And then at the end, you see the little teeth, those weirs, the water goes over the weirs and then it goes to the next process. So as I was stating earlier, these two primary clarifiers are pretty big. With the rain that's coming in, we don't even need these on still. We're just fine with running the 3 smaller ones. And as flow comes up, then we can store more flow into here. But for the most part, we won't run these until we need to. Which again, saves us from the bypassing part. So that way everything gets treated. Select treating everything.
Flows in, the solids go to the bottom. Crows get in there. There's a crow in there.
The stuff that's underneath that's getting treated and pumped over to
That's gross.
This is the very end of the plant. We're just going to show you this because we're already down here. This is right before the water goes out to the river right here. So these 2 pumps right here, these are actually wastewater pumps. This is to reuse the water. It's on top of the water that we can reuse in certain areas of the plant that's essentially rechlorinating that's going out to the river anyway. So we use as much as we can. And then there's also some analyzers for us to read the hypo to make sure that it's clean enough and it's safe before it goes out to the environment. So it's constantly sampling and letting us know what's going on, and then there's also a little meter in there that's reading to that iPad station, the computer station, that's showing us what things are looking like to make sure that we're safe, that we don't need to make any changes. So this is where we are basically going out. Because we have like Kyle was stating earlier, for NPDES permit, we have a 1.7 daily limit and a 0.7 monthly limit. But we usually run around 0.4 to 0.6, which is safe for the environment, is what they're saying. Now, things are going to change now in the next year or so it sounds like we're going to have to be at like a 0.19, if I'm right.
We're in the process of going through, the permit expired and was administratively extended in 2009. And DEQ is working hard on reissuing a new permit, but we're trying to work out how that works with the new facility that will come online during that permit period. But yeah, our chlorine residual is one of the topics of discussion for the new permit.
Because Columbia's has changed and they want everybody's to change, and we've been kind of grandfathered in with the regulations that we've been using as it is, but right now we do a good job. We never go over the monthly, we never go over the daily. It's never an issue. So
the new facility will use ultraviolet disinfection, so it won't use chlorine at all. So that's one of the pluses of the new facility.
Right there's a big pump station. That's going to stay here regardless when the new plant comes in, because that feeds from a couple different neighborhoods, Riverview.
Yeah, it's at Dunthorpe, Riverdale. There's an interceptor that runs parallel to the Willamette that picks up over to Lewis and Clark College.
Right now that pumps to the front of the headworks. So, during super high flows, this does get up, and I think this does get the high stuff, right?
No, it's just heavily rain influenced.
Yeah, so this thing will get high, and for the most part in the summer it doesn't pump as much, but when we start to get rain, it pumps up and contributes a decent amount to the headwork. So that will be staying either way though. And I think they're talking about the new plant will end up tying right into here.
Now, the new plant is going to use the existing outfall pipeline to the river. So yeah, this would be the point of connection for the new facility to the existing pipe. That and the outfall pipeline is in good condition, and it's got good dilutions and functions well. So there's no need to functionally replace it. In the capital program for the future of Tryon, none of the projects include any sort of modifications to that outfall pipeline.
So as I mentioned earlier, so the 5 clarifiers, if they were online, any of them that are online, they go over the weirs and they go over this edge into this channel. And this is the one spot I was talking about where gravity's not on our side. This is the one spot where we have to have one of these pumps that's online, that's in this channel, to pump up in elevation up to our aeration basin where it starts our biological treatment. So this is the one spot where we have to have power consistently always running.
Do you know about with the building of a new plant, if they're going to navigate trying to get around this one spot that needs to be pumped versus making it all gravity?
I'm not sure.
The new plant has a very different treatment process, and it requires, they will have an influent pump station. So rather than pumping the primary effluent, they're actually going to be pumping the incoming sewage into a treatment process. But it's a very different process, and it will involve pumping.
Currently, if these pumps fail, or should they all fail and we lose power and the generators start for some reason, we would have about 14 minutes before this wastewater overflowed and went into the river. So very, very quick time for operators to get the equipment running. You may have heard back in the summer, we had an excursion, 2 excursions. One of them was related specifically to this. We were doing some testing on the electrical equipment, and so we had to have all the power off the whole plant. And we brought in backup generators to run this specifically because we know that this has to be on. and we had an issue where the generator was running, but the cable connected to the station had a GFCI, a resettable breaker, and it tripped. So the generator was running, we thought it was good, and then it lost power, and within 4 minutes, it overflowed because we were operating at a higher level on that backup generator, and so that's what caused that failure. But typically, we're operating very quick. We have a lot of redundancy built in. We have a generator. If we lose plant power, the generator will operate, power the whole plant here. So there is redundancy built in, but it's this is the one weak spot we have at the facility.
And we usually have, again, we have backup power units and backup power units inside here in case things go on or instrumentation's not working, or you lose like communication, we'll say, for these items. Usually we'll run this, but that was just an anomaly that happened, you know, partially because they're trying to figure out power issues with PGE, with the new plant. Some of that stuff was going on, so yeah, it just happened. And you know, usually when you have a backup generator, because the other generator was not available because we were actually messing with the automatic transfer switch, wasn't operating, so it hasn't happened before that, but it's like, it's kind of crazy day. So anyway, we'll walk. We run one of these pumps all the time. So unless we get to be high flows, but most of the time it's just one pump is running everything, no problem. So this is our blower building. This is where we are able to provide the oxygen that we use for biological part of the site. So we have 3 blowers inside there that we'll use for there. We only use one blower 99.9% of the time ever. One of them will easily keep enough oxygen to provide for one set of aeration basins. We have, essentially they're 2 aeration basins, but they're considered two different sets. But essentially it's just one set being on. So we'll walk up there, and this is just our blower building that we right now. Trees too, crazy. The spiders are enormous too, like the cobwebs and it's like the spider webs and yeah, they love it because the lighting's out here, and then they get the bugs. It's like a feast for them.
I was surprised to see so many spider webs along the top of even where it's moving.
And
I
we've
was
been
like,
cleaning them. That's the crazy
yeah.
thing. You come out here at like 5:30, 6 in the morning, and they're like me personally, if I don't come out here like they do, but like I'll take I walk like this.
Yeah.
Like
It's like how you walk through the
taking a
forest
sword
when
out.
you're,
Like,
yeah.
no, I don't want this. It's literally, I had a spider right here that was enormous, and I looked down while I'm like, oh my god. I'm not like afraid of spiders, but I don't want them on my shoulder.
Yeah.
So this is that bypass gate or select treat line. That hypo line is only the one that's a couple years old that we put up here, and this is if we can't treat everything that comes up to, that goes through the rest of the process, which is considered this aeration basin, and then the 2 finals that are right there. If we get to the point where everything's full, those primary clarifiers are full, those aeration basins are full, that other final is full, then what we would do is we would start pre-chlorinating with that line and start putting hypo into it, and then this gate would come open, and then what we would do is we would bypass, which is the word why we use it, but they don't like the word, to start going down this way to go to essentially the second half of the plant. So this is that gate that we were talking about.
So this is where the magic happens. This is the reason why we're here, is to oversee this part of the process. This is where 80%, 70% of the treatment happens in this secondary treatment system. So prior to this point, we've used gravity and mechanical systems to separate liquids and solids. And here, we're actually biologically removing contaminants and solid waste from the process. So we use microorganisms to do that. You can see we got the greenish gray liquid coming in from the primary clarifiers that's in the channel underneath you. We just saw that part of the process over there. And then coming in on this brown pipe, you see the brown, dark brown colored liquid coming in. So we call that mixed liquor. We have, we're mixing the liqueur together here. And so the brown, so when we talk about solids in the treatment process, at the first stages of the treatment process, the solids is the actual waste, the human waste or other contaminants in the water. Solids in secondary treatment system is the actual bacteria. They're now the solid because they've consumed and reduced the organic waste, so they are now the solid material. So we're bringing them here, mixing them with the human waste, with the sewage, and they start doing their treatment process here. Some bacteria need oxygen to survive and to thrive, and some don't. And so we have different stages. We call them selector zones. We're selecting for a specific type of bacteria that doesn't need dissolved oxygen to consume or to respirate. And so we give them the first chance at the waste, and then after that we give every other bacteria that could possibly be present. We'll let them have their go at the waste in the aerated portions of the plant. After this stage of aeration, there's settling tanks just like the primary clarifiers, where we're settling liquids and solids physically again. This time the solids that drop are again the microorganisms, the bugs, and so we collect them and we pump them back. So they're just going in a circle. So they come into here, they get to eat some food, breathe a little bit, and they go and they rest and they settle, and then we just suck them off the bottom of the tank, and they just keep doing that all day long. So the liquid is in this process for anywhere from 4 to 12 hours a day. In one day, it goes through pretty quick, the liquid does. The solids will stay behind in our plant anywhere from 20 to 30 days. The solids are on site. And so we recirculate solids here, we keep them in our digester, so we maintain the solids longer because the solids on these later stages are the actual bacteria that do the treatment. So we want to keep them around to continue to treat the water for us.
And this is where we do those numbers where we have a certain target we want in this aeration basin, because you don't want too much and you don't want too little. So we try to find that happy zone that keeps treatment perfect. And this side, just so you're aware, this side right here mirrors this side right here. So you can see what an empty one looks like. We never run process with both of these running at the same time. This one is essentially a holding zone for what we call it when we trim. We will open these gates when there's too much flow going in and things aren't settling enough. We can hold a storm in here. So if we have a couple day storm, what we can do is we'll open these gates and then we'll kind of hold it in there for a little bit till we can get full treatment on everything else, and then we pump it back and recycle it back to that pump station that had the one pump back on, and then it gets the full secondary treatment again. So that way everything gets treated. So, and what I think Kyle said it, but I couldn't hear. This flow also, this doesn't come from this tank, it comes from the final clarifier over there. So it gets the second part of the treatment, and that's when they settle, like you said, and then they get pumped back into here. So they're constantly eating, resting, and coming back.
We'll head down that way. We'll go look at those clarifiers. Fine, right there.
That's another question I usually get asked. The water's in here right now just to kind of keep these membranes full clarifier look. But just to show you, the flow goes over the weirs just like in most of the plant. It goes over the weir over here, and then it gets fed from a channel that's right over there, and then it goes down into these holes, and from those holes it goes into those little upside down snorkel deals, and then it diverts the flow into the middle. And what happens here is things, as you'll see over here, the solids will then end up coming down to the middle and probably settle, and this arm goes all the way around, and this is considered like our RAS arm, where there's little holes that will take the activated sludge, and that is what's pumping over to that ground flow that was pumping into that pipe back into the aeration. So that's like the bugs essentially are going back to get the new food, which is the primary effluent.
Like a big giant vacuum, basically going around and just sucking the bottom of that floor.
And we measure that by, there's a, it's called a sludge judge. It's kind of a big plastic deal. It's not what that is, but what it does is we measure to see how much what our blanket level is inside here to see how much, because that all goes into our calculation of how much solids we have in our system. Not only do we check over to here, but also into here as well.
Full one.
So this water, the outside channel is the influent that comes into here. It goes in, the solids on the bottom, and then as you see, the cleaner water that looks pretty clean is what's going over before it gets treated with hypo. It has not gotten treated with hypo yet. This is right before it gets the hypochlorite, essentially bleach, before it gets treated, and then it's just contacting water before it goes out to the river.
Yeah, so,
physical separation. Biological separation and then you do a treatment.
Exactly. Yep. Our physical separation to keep our everything at the very beginning to get rid of all that stuff, and then the biological treatment starts right over there. And then we end up doing chemical to make sure everything's clean. You know, some people do, like I said, do the UV. And some people do the chemical. We still do the chemical. I think at Columbia they used to use a gas, and now that they've gone to hypochlorite as well. And that's what we still use. And we actually dose hypo right at the end, kind of where that arm is, the white arm is right there. It goes down right there. And we actually chlorinate right over there. There's a turbidity meter. See that little white shack? That little white lid deal that's over there? That is a turbidity meter. That is like, for me, that's the biggest eyes of the plant about what's really going on in the plant, because it'll show you if solid, turbidity meter kind of reads like the like everything, how things are settling. If there's too much solids going through the water, you'll see if tiny little chemicals go over, and that reads it on what we're at. And it'll see if things are settling good enough in here, because if things just pushed up, what would happen, it came in here too fast, is the solids would never have time to tension, and they would sit there and go over the edge, and more solids are then going out to the river, and it's not clean. So this gives us a chance to kind of really see. Turbidity meter is like big for me, especially, and I know a lot of people use that, but our turbidity is really good compared to most places anyway.
Wasn't there recently like an issue with getting chlorine? Did that impact you guys?
There was like a shortage, but yeah, we're kind of like on their high list of we need it type of stuff. Okay. So yeah, and we do pretty good out here. We use anywhere from like 60 to 200 gallons a day of hypo, which isn't, if you think, that's really not that much for how much you're using, but yeah, that's not an issue. It was like a little shortage for a little while. We were a little worried. Columbia deals with it a lot more because they use a lot more hypo, obviously, because they're a lot bigger. They're 10 times what their normal flows from like 50 to 70 NGD. We're anywhere from 3.5 to 5.5 a day. So yeah, but we can also store 5,000 gallons of hypo in our in each tank down there. So we have a storage of up to 10,000. We take some of our solids, and when we have too much solids, we add like a polymer, and then we get rid of the water as much as we can, and then that's when we can pump that down to those trucks that's 6,000 gallons. We usually do about 2 to 3 trucks a week. 2 to 3 trucks a day, every day of the week, 5 days a week, to get rid of some of the solids to keep that even field level that we want. So.
I have a question. What type of educational or labor background do you have to do the work that you and everyone else is doing here?
Great question. So I think there's a couple different views on that. So it's a labor-intensive work, and so you have to be somewhat skilled. And what we like, everywhere it's different, but I think we like to have folks who are who understand the wastewater treatment processes. That can be taught, it can be learned, but it's difficult when, like at Columbia, it's just such a massive plant. It's hard to teach somebody who doesn't already have a background in wastewater to treat them the basics of wastewater, and then to help understand just on this massive scale how to do the job. Clackamas Community College has a great water and wastewater program that a number of folks have gone through that to get that basic understanding, and then it's very easy to translate that into the field, into the plant. We're seeing right now that there's a lot of interest in the field to do the work, but there is not the experience or knowledge needed to become a journey level operator. One of the challenges we have is we have only hired journey level operators, and so that worked for a number of years when the industry was booming and there was people who were interested in moving around. Now someone like Ryan, who's been in the industry for 20 years, he's not leaving this job to go work as an operator at a different agency, because one, he's going to give up seniority, he's going to have to start on the vacations schedule all over again, he may have to work graveyard or night shift. So journey level operators aren't leaving their current positions to go start somewhere else. And so this is happening nationwide, where there's a shortage of knowledgeable operators, and so we're having to train folks with basically no background in wastewater treatment ourselves. Yeah.
And I'm not sure if it was you. Someone mentioned they were an engineer. Was it you?
I am not an engineer.
Someone was it you?
I have my engineering degree, but that guy's the engineer.
That's what I was trying to figure out, if it was like something like if you could be like if it was an apprentice level thing you could be taught into, or if you came into this position with like a bachelor's or a master's.
So there's I will say this, Kyle's one that's always been an advocate for this, which I think is amazing, is we're trying to sooner or later end up getting maybe some sort of like apprentice type job for operators, to where they can come in at an entry level field and they can do more of the labor type stuff and then kind of build up, because sometimes, as everybody knows, I have my engineering degree that's not doing anything for me where I'm at right now. That doesn't mean I don't want to go be anywhere. I know Jim would like me to go over there, but I like my job. I work 410s. I have flexibility. I like working for the city. Things are
He's negotiating now.
things are good, and you know, right now I'm 4 miles from home, so like I really like my job. I really like my job, what it is. But I think it would be good for an opportunity for people that do get out of school, because to be honest, some of our best employees out of the 40-something operators we have are ones that necessarily didn't have the wastewater background before they came in, but then ended up, you know, you got to have people that can communicate well, work well with others, and they can learn this job, you know, on the job. But I think that that's something that we've been wanting to implement, to where it's because everybody comes in as an operator two, but a long time ago, 20 years ago, they did actually have op ones, where you just kind of did some labor stuff, hosed on things, did this and that, and then you can move up. So hopefully that opportunity will arise. I know Kyle's been working on a training program that hopefully that will end up coming to fruition at some point, but I think that's just waiting to see what happens. But right now, I think that this, you know, his job right now is to be a manager here. If this place was going to go away, he was, you know, maybe have other plans. So
There's also a state certification.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
You have to be more of a generalist here than at Columbia, because it's a much smaller
Yes.
shop and
Yep.
know pretty much everything.
You know what, to be honest, I will say this again, I didn't know wastewater until I actually came out here. I knew a little bit about it because I had to learn about it, but over there's a bunch of different work groups, and that you know, you're more of an, I would say, I don't like to say this to downplay them, but you're more maybe of an assembly line person, because one person's doing this. Out here, you're doing everything at all the time. And there's one person here right now on the weekends she's by herself. She's here on Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. Those are her days she works 410s. Now she's here with other people on Fridays, but on Saturdays, Sundays, she does everything herself. She makes decisions on her own, with a few phone calls from me every weekend. But she does a good job. I mean, but you have to be more understanding of everything out here. Basically dose the hypo here, and then it goes to those circle contact chambers. Essentially, that's just detention time for the hypo residual not to be too high, basically before it goes out. And then I showed you the contact chamber before it goes out to the river, and that's essentially was the tour. So.
Great. Well, on that note, I'm gonna let you guys eat lunch. Thank you everyone for coming. It was really good to see you. Great tour, everyone. Really
Thank
good.
you.
Yeah, good to see you.
I just had one more question actually. I'm not sure if you guys would be the right people to ask, but with the moving forward, we're looking at Lake Oswego essentially taking the ownership where we previously had it. What is you have a job now? Are you guaranteed a job in that transfer, and is everyone guaranteed a job in that transfer? Like, what's job security looking like?
So we're actually we're all the same pool. So Kyle is a manager. He actually manages some things at Columbia just like as he does here. His where he is stationed essentially is here, but he does things over there. the same thing for myself and everybody that's there. In fact, we're always hiring. I think there's actually, if you see open recruitment, you'll see they're always looking for Op2s and millwrights, and it's actually just standing. So they would gladly take us back. We're actually all in the same pool. Everybody that's out here right now is out here because they want to be out here. I'm number 3 out of 42 people for seniority. So for me, I came out here because it's quiet. I don't know if anybody's been at the Columbia plant. You have, but it's busy, especially right now. You have to have a hard hat. You have to have everything on. I'm not for that. Like, I'm not against it. Just this is quieter. This is more my speed. I like to be able to make, decisions that you can actually see happen right then. You don't see that in Columbia maybe for a couple days. This is a great place to work.
You can't really beat a 4-mile commute.
No, exactly. Yeah.
But so when Lake Oswego takes over, you would move
We
to
would just go over
Columbia at some point.
Yeah. I will not.
So
I'm not going to go back to
planning-
being Op2
part of
over there.
Our
I will
5-year
say
financial
that.
planning is looking at what do we need in 5 years, 4 or 5 years, and how can these roles fit that. We know that we are understaffed at Columbia. We have a lot of issues we operate 24 hours a day there, and we are forcing people to work overtime because of the amount of work we have and the lack of staffing.
How many people had to work double shifts over that period where there were 9 vacancies, I think?
Yeah.
I mean, our labor force, getting people is been a challenge.
Yeah. Yep. So,
But everybody has, anybody that's came in, the millwrights that are both out here, they chose to come out, they want to be out here. And the operators that are out here, it's built on a seniority. Yearly, we do basically a bid, and the number 1 person chooses, okay, I want to go there. And that could be from graveyard to out here to a solids area, liquids area, whatever it is. There's a bunch of different areas that they get to choose.
And that'll be that will continue into
Yep.
the ownership of
To the transition of whatever happens. Yep,
Okay.
absolutely.
but our staff won't work there anymore.
Yeah.
Okay, that's
Our
what I was
employees
trying
go back to
get at.
Columbia.
No, yeah, no,
We're
they
done.
want us to go over there. They've basically offered me a job
okay.
to.
Yeah, the design build operator will have their own staff.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, Ryan may jump ship and go work for them, but Columbia or City of Portland will no longer have employees out here.
Oh, okay. Oh, good try.
But we'll be part of the transition all the way until basically, because what we'll be doing is we'll be weaning away this plant, essentially. So, because what they're going to do is they're going to take a certain percent over maybe a couple months, and then another certain percent until this place is gone, and then they're going to, do the demo or whatever. I mean, it's 2027 is what, that's with no hiccups and everything goes good, Yeah.
The whole transfer will be done by 2027?
Is the
That's
on
the
paper, on
schedule.
paper, yeah.
Well,
I know.
Yeah, so
Ambitious.
Lake Oswego's contractor is putting together a final offer, essentially, and they're in the process of doing the negotiations with their design build operator.
And it's not the city building it all, so I mean,
Yeah,
they're gonna be
so
motivated more
it's-
to do what they want to do, because that's when they start getting.
There's still the I mean, it's a big excavation to be making, and there's always those risks of things taking longer.
Yeah.
But I would say, they've got a lot riding on that schedule of being done in 2027.
Can I recommend, if we're still good, there's some lunch. We move from here to the inside to a smaller group. We can be indoors. And then we can have the project conversation at that point. There's a little bit of coordination that we're having to go through, manage with Lake Oswego. This was mentioned, but let me say it again. This is a P3 process, so and it's a complicated P3 process in that there are 2 separate governmental entities that are involved. We have intentionally decided to not directly have a relationship with EPCOR, a contractual relationship with EPCOR. So the EPCOR is the design build operator in the P3, and that's the entity that Lake Oswego is directly contracting with. We are we're flipping to the customer in this new arrangement, and we will be codifying that relationship through a new intergovernmental agreement with Lake Oswego. So it's kind of a chain relationship. Lake Oswego is in contract with EPCOR, and we're going to be in contract with Lake Oswego. The IGA has to be approved by both city councils. And ideally, we would be scheduling those hearings and approvals really close in time. Last year, we did something similar, if you remember, for those of you that were on the board. But that was for the interim IGA that's covering this period before the project agreement is in place. So what we're pursuing this December is the long-term IGA that's going to cover us for this 30-year operating period. So the P3 is a relationship that'll last 30 years between Lake Oswego and EPCOR, and this IGA is going to be termed for the same amount of time. So it's a pretty weighty agreement that binds both governments for 30 years. But I think I mentioned it makes financial sense, and I think there's opportunities to reconcile if things over that 30 years change, the fundamentals change, we can bring things into balance. The principle of this agreement is equity, that we are paying our fair share for whatever costs arise, and that we're sharing the benefits equally as well. So to do that, we need to get this IGA approved through council. We're looking at December 13th as being the first reading. And so backing away from that, we will need to have a pub presentation just to get you all familiar with it, answer questions, and ideally, it would be, if it's warranted and the board feels this way, the majority of the board feels this way, having a letter of support or some endorsement of this work would be really valuable. I know there's been some questions about some of the terms in the IGA. Previous board members have asked about, right now we own this plot of land, and we own this plant. Part of the new IGA would be transferring ownership of this plot of land in time to Lake Oswego for a nominal value. That has hung some people up as to why we'd be giving away what is very valuable real estate, and I can appreciate that. When looked in isolation, it seems like a head scratcher for many folks. But you need to look at it, I think that, I shouldn't say you need to. It's more appropriate to look at it as a one of many terms of a negotiation that's part of a 30-year agreement. And when all of those aspects of this agreement are netted out, the city of Portland is expected to save on the order of $60 million plus. So demanding that we have a higher return on this property can upset that negotiation, and may actually bring the city, have a lower net benefit to the city. So we've had frank conversations with Lake Oswego about this. They understand the situation, but we are kind of open book to both jurisdictions are open book with each other and sharing our analysis. And we do feel that while that is an example of how you can get a kind of a weird result by just looking at a portion of the deal, the net deal is favorable to both parties. And I think that's the real shift politically, as compared to past arrangements where things, one jurisdiction or the other has had a more favorable result. This is a tool to deliver equality for both jurisdictions. So we're not going to get into the details here, but I would expect to have questions like that in the pub meeting, and we can get into more details at that point. So first reading on the 13th of December, second reading on the 7th, all things going to plan. Right around the same time, this will be going to Lake Oswego City Council. Then our process has a 30-day, for normal business, has a 30-day until that legislation comes into effect. And at that point, we would be starting starting our financial transfer to Lake Oswego, and we would be preparing to demo these properties and doing the site prep sometime in the March timeframe. So things are going to happen very quickly. And we heard that it's a multi-year project to get built, and then to commission and decommission is also going to take some time. You can't just flip the switch off here and flip the switch on there. It takes some time to make sure the biology is working. I would invite any of the professionals to speak about that process. But I think what we would expect is Tryon Creek will continue to operate as it does for the next several years while this is being built out. So I'm going to stop and see if there's any questions and about the tour or about the arrangement with Lake Oswego.
With the 3P relationship, what is the risk of that to Portland after? Like if things go through as they're currently drafted,
Yeah.
what is the risk to Portland? I don't know, the public-private partnership is the part that makes me nervous.
Yeah.
And so I'm just curious if you can like kind of elaborate a little bit more.
So what the dynamic of this is, we're getting Lake Oswego and EPCOR are entering into a project agreement, which essentially will have, after all the negotiations are finalized, fixed costs over the course of the year, and with some language that allows for unexpected circumstances, business circumstances, natural events, where additional costs need to be incurred, how that responsibility will be shared between EPCOR and Lake Oswego. So that's the primary. The costs will be fixed, and then there is a process of reconciliation should that change. We're kind of one step removed in that those costs will then drive a reconciliation between Lake Oswego and City of Portland. So there will always be risk. There's a known, we kind of minimize the risk we feel to certain circumstances. Operational, EPCOR can't proactively increase the cost of delivering services. They're contractually obligated to deliver their services at a fixed price. So that's giving us certainty, and that's leading to what will be in a part of our intergovernmental agreement. There will be a schedule of annual payments that are actually laid out, as Lake Oswego should not expect to get more from Portland than this amount in this year, over 30 years. So we're mapping that schedule of payments out with the understanding that unforeseen instances can drive other costs. So the short of it is, a lot of things can happen in 30 years. We feel like we have locked down all of the known costs, and the unknown costs, we have a mechanism for addressing it.
And I would add part of it, part of the selection process that Lake Oswego went through. We were part of the process of selecting EPCOR. EPCOR is Edmonton Power Corporation. It's a publicly owned corporation. The 100% of the shares are owned by the city of Edmonton. Essentially, Edmonton spun off their utilities many years ago, I believe in the 80s. And they have continued to expand into providing this sort of contracted services to other municipalities. They're big in Arizona. This will be their first presence in the Pacific Northwest. So part of the risk is dealing with the risk is who your P3 partner is, who the private partner is. And I think of the city of Lake Oswego has got consultants that are experts in the public-private partnership space, or whatever you call it. And they've been very, very helpful in making sure that both of the cities are protected. The parent company guarantee, the insurance, and all of the other securities that ensure that no one can just walk away and say, well, here's Lake Oswego, here's your plant. That's an extremely low risk. So part of the risk mitigation is in who the partner is and what securities there are as part of the agreement.
Will wastewater from Portland always be pumped in? Will this always be like a Portland and Lake Oswego thing, or with the transition, will it be more of a like, Portland's no longer running it, and then we're gonna see what we can do to like get our water to go to the Columbia, or will this always kind of be just locationally Oswego?
I think from a technical feasibility standpoint, further centralizing flows to Columbia is very problematic just from a treatment plant and a treatment capacity standpoint. Getting from here to there, you know, it's funny because that was actually back in the early 90s. I think one of the early things was, well, Portland, can't you just get rid of that plant and put in a pump station? Well, yes, you can do pretty much anything with enough money. But the cost of operating and maintaining a large pump station and a very, very long pressure pipeline, and then dealing with now sewage that will be two days old by the time it reaches Columbia Boulevard, creates terrible treatment issues at Columbia Boulevard. It's possibly one of the reasons that Columbia Boulevard has such a challenge dealing with treating the waste that it does. It's a lot of it's old when it gets there.
To put it a different way, gravity doesn't care about municipal boundaries.
Yeah, it's,
you know, so the geography is driving where it's feasible to put treatment, and the history of development and how all of the pipes have been built out drives what's feasible.
Yeah,
too.
the sewer shed,
yeah,
if you will. It comes here and it will continue to come here, and the cost of replacing that infrastructure to take it elsewhere is prohibitive.
Yeah. Do you want to?
I was gonna basically say that, but I was just, there's already 107 pump stations throughout the city of Portland, and this would be an enormous pump station, so if you did that, you'd be pumping the smaller pump stations with a big pump. It just doesn't make sense.
Yeah, it creates a larger number of problems than it solves. It is.
Because
There's a general public good, it's not
a million rumors.
it's
You can only imagine working at this place for the last 6 years because this was gonna get a new headworks before. This is, I mean, it's been kind of a tough place to work for a little while just because of what's happened and the rumors we hear and this and that. And I've given tours to I don't know how many people in the last. Not saying that I don't like giving tours. It's the people that want to take it, but it's just like since I started working here, it's just crazy. And then we've had to work in a situation where it's like, well, is the plant going away or is it not?
Yeah.
Are we spending money on this? Are we not? Like that's been kind of a tough, thing. And we've heard the rumor. I thought they were just going to turn that into a pump station. I'm like, oh gosh, I'm gonna have you call Jim.
And we are continuing to do projects out here. We are continuing to do capital projects because we need to make sure that the treatment plant continues to operate reliably. So we've got, someone pointed at the bar screens at the headworks. Those were recently reconstructed. And we've got other projects that are ongoing. We cannot just.
The degritter just got replaced, and we're ready to do some replacement on the primaries. The two that were offline, we're getting ready to do a rehab project on that. I mean, people are paying the same, so we have to treat it as, we're treating water until the day it goes out until we're done. So
yeah, we still have to manage all the risks.
That waste gas burner, the little Olympic torch you saw out there is getting replaced because it's basically worn down and it's not necessarily it's more of a safety issue at this point. So we're getting ready to replace that in this next summer. So.
I think to the question about risk, I think for operations, the greatest risk is between now and when the plant is built. Mm-hmm. Because we have to get there. We have to operate the plant and maintain it until that point to a financially responsible degree, right? We can't throw $500 million into upgrading existing assets if it's gonna go away in 4 years. And so that's the risk that we feel internally is we've got to make this plant operate. We've got to get through. While we are doing upgrades, they are going to be minimal upgrades. They're not going to be these super huge projects, and that puts a lot of stress on staff. But like we talked about before, our staff do an amazing job with what they have and the assets that are out here.
You can see on that whiteboard right there. That's projects and needs of some things that kind of that we need to end up getting done. But some of that I don't want to say we're going to limp it along. Like we're not going to do something not safe or that's not beneficial to the plant, but we're going to try to do some of those things that we can do, and then some of it, we're going to see how things go and take, depending on how things work. But.
and with other systems. We've got some electrical equipment that's vintage 1976. And we've purchased, off of eBay, reconditioned components to have those standby on the shelf. We were in the process of, the Headworks project was going to replace all of that equipment. So we're looking at a maintenance approach that to reduce the risk of that equipment failing.
For the CBO folks in the room, I'll also say this change has budget implications as well. A lot of these expenditures, if we own the asset, are capital expenditures. It can be financed with bond financing. If our relationship with Lake Oswego shifts, when we become a customer, we're paying for that service, and so there will be some shift in those fundings moving to operating dollars, which Anthony knows we're like every other bureau. There's never enough money anywhere, but we have an imbalance in BES as to the ratio of operating dollars to capital dollars that puts a lot of stress on people and processes. So this solves the problem, but also adds to another problem. So there's I've been saying this a lot. This is the first time we've all been meeting together, so it'll be the first time you heard it, but luckily Don has left the room. There are no free choices here. Every decision has a consequence. Sometimes those consequences are positive, sometimes they're negative, but there's always some blend of that, and trying to balance those dynamics is really challenging, particularly in this environment of change in the city as a whole. There's a lot of things that we're dominoes we're hoping to fall first, and then we can respond to those, because if we make decisions in one area and a domino falls here and we have to undo all of that, it becomes really disruptive. So this is part of that. We've talked about rate increases as another sensitive issue that's come to pub. This project is one of the drivers for our rate increases, because it does shift some of the cost burden onto the operating budget. And so all of these issues are related, and I would just ask pub to keep that in mind. Nothing really can be teased apart in isolation and judged alone.
Out of curiosity, does anything in the IGA speak to potential city policy if the city wanted to exceed regulations for environmental quality, let's say, and Lake Oswego was like, no, we're good how things are. Is there anything that gives the city of Portland any ability to say, actually, we want this water coming to Portland treated at a higher standard?
So that's a great question. I will invite Jim to respond, but I'll say a couple things to start. We are the permit holder right now for this location. When Lake Oswego takes ownership, they will be the permit holder, and how they manage that will be on them. However, we do have a stake if how they manage it drives investments that we have to pay a portion of. So I think, at least informally, there is commitment to have ongoing dialogue about those cost drivers in a timely way so that we can prepare for them. But I think that's a point that maybe we need to raise in the IGA.
Well, I think one of the things that sort of addresses your question is that what was the design criteria for the new facility? And one of the when we're comparing the new facility to the current facility, the new facility is going to treat to a much higher level of treatment. And part of that is, when we're talking about what the future cost of rehabbing Tryon Creek is, that includes the future cost of dealing with tighter permit standards and nutrient removal requirements. Well, those are actually built into the design criteria for the new facility. It's a different treatment process, but it will remove ammonia, nitrogen, and will to some extent remove phosphorus, which currently, this treatment facility is not designed to remove those nutrients. It will include tertiary filtration. So as far as future proofing and treating to a higher level, that's somewhat one of the benefits of building new rather than retrofitting the old, is that you can build the new and future proof to the extent that you can for future treatment regulations and discharge limits.
Okay.
So they won't have chlorinated effluent. We have chlorinated effluent. Our current permit for the summer is 20 milligrams per liter of total suspended solids, 20 milligrams per liter biochemical oxygen demand. The new facility, so the permit will be held by Lake Oswego, and that's going to be at a lower level. It'll be at the current basin standards. That's something that DEQ will establish, but Lake Oswego will be the permit holder, and it, you know, I think that the decisions that have been made today regarding the capacity of the new facility, it'll be able to receive up to 50 million gallons a day of wastewater, and currently we can do about 35 here. So there are some of it built into what the design criteria are for the new facility to future-proof.
Okay.
But there's nothing directly in the IGA that gives us the ability to direct, yeah.
Investments in our system, Lake Oswego is on the hook for paying a portion of it, that impact Tryon Creek, and they have an interest in at least being aware of, if not maybe commenting on our decision making.
What Lake Oswego's used in the past to influence our decision making is they have land use approval authority over any project we do on the facility, and anything we do requires a conditional use permit. And if they don't like what we're doing, we will not get a permit to do it. That's one of the risks going forward also, is that we really don't control our own destiny owning this facility.
Sure.
It's an illusion.
We won't have that same.
Yeah. And the new project, the land use review process is underway. There's I think it's in November. They've got a date set for the Lake Oswego land use planning process, a hearing with their planning commission for the new facility. So that is ongoing, as is the property acquisition for the new facility.
Yeah. So, can't remember what was in the 5-year financial plan and how like the IGA, like this pending IGA was factored in. So, do you have like a rough dollar amount, what the scale of the IGA year to year moving forward?
Yeah, so we have a payment schedule that's going to be in the IGA, and I don't have it memorized 30 years of annual payments, but
maybe like the first couple of years is like
yeah. So
10
the first
million, 30 million.
So the first couple of years, I think we are front loading our share of it. And this is an important concept because if you guys are reviewing the IGA draft and you're picking a random year, it's not going to be 70-30. Okay. It's over cumulatively the value of our shared investment will be 70-30, but because of the cash flow demands and constraints of each organization, we've had to, I love this term, we've had to sculpt. We've had to sculpt the financing so that it fits people's. I'm not a finance person, so this is all news to me, but it's a nice term. So what this looks like in the short term is we are front loading because Lake Oswego is needing to increase their utility rate base as part of their financial plan. There's also other financing that's happening, but to build their base up will take time. So 3% doesn't buy a lot the first year, but a 3% on 3% on 3%, suddenly you have a rate base that can support your fair share, and that's part of what's driving us paying a little bit more than 30% in the early years.
Yeah. Okay.
And
but is it can you bring that like 15 million moving? That was bond or like the bond funded on the capital side, and now it's 15 million like in operating.
So
I know those costs, they look different in SAP.
Why don't I schedule some time with you and Matt and
I was going to say Matt knows this stuff.
Yeah. So I don't want to go. I think it's. I don't think we ever pay more than 20 million in a year. I think it's teens is our high point, and it goes down to 3 to 5 million in a year at the last half of the 30 years.